Oh, yeah.
You sure, man? Well, your signs. I was gonna pick them up. 'Cause I picked up all the signs.
Oh, good.
Every area.
Good evening. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. We're fine.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Robbins.
Here.
Commissioner Rushton.
Present.
Commissioner Bailey.
Here.
Commissioner Chairman Wessel.
Here.
Commissioner Sotis Little.
Here.
Commissioner Allgaier.
Here.
Commissioner Lautner.
Present.
All present.
Thank you. Thank you. We have some minutes. We have 3 sets of minutes that have been presented to us. If we want to entertain a motion to approve.
I would like to read these. I'd like to. So I'd like to wait.
Which ones would you like to wait on?
October 11th and November 9th.
We have the executive session minutes of October 4. Would we like to approve those at this time?
Was that a motion?
I was asking for a motion. If some,
I'll make the motion to approve the executive session meeting minutes of October 4th, 2022.
Support.
any discussion? All those in support say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. We do have an agenda and we have some changes. Mr. Janik, would you go over the changes?
Yeah, there's no new items on the agenda. A couple items were moved from the consent agenda to the action items. So it's so different than was sent out, but it's the same agenda items. There's no new additions to it.
Okay,
Patricia?
yeah, I'm just looking here at the agenda to see what was,
The equalization and the finance department, even though it was 6-0, was voted to move it forward, not to pass it, so that was moved to it. And then the salary and the letter and the labor negotiations are just updates. There's no action taken, but I want to give an update on those issues.
I would like to pull the letter of understanding Teamsters Local out of the consent agenda.
It's not in there.
It's not in.
It's not an action item.
Yes.
Oh, it
it's
is an action item. I beg your pardon, sorry, I'm just not reading right. So, no, thanks.
That was a 5-1 vote last week, so that's why it's
Yeah,
not on
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
consent.
Any other additions or deletions?
Mr. Chairman, would you clarify the numbers that we're taking off the agenda?
Yes, the letter of understanding for Teamsters Local 214 were moved down to an action item because that was a 5-1 vote last week. And the finance department training options were moved from the consent agenda to the action.
Thank you.
Could I have a motion for approval of the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the agenda as amended.
Support.
All those in support of that say aye.
Aye.
We have an agenda approved, 7-0. At this point, we would invite public comment, would ask you to come up and speak loudly so the clerk can get it recorded. And if you'll raise your hand, I'll recognize you. Mr. Ashley?
I'm Keith Ashley, Leelanau Township. On the way in this tonight, it just gave me pause to think with the weather being what it is, that each of you come here several times a month for the purpose of doing the people's business. And so I, for one, thank each of you for doing that. That's not always the best way to travel. That being said, we are governed by the will and consent of people, that being the taxpayers. Are we governed, I should say, are we governed by the will and consent of the people, the taxpayers, using facts, rationale, and justification? Or is it by settling scores with officials found to be out of favor? When the two new director positions were passed last year, the public voiced opposition to the unjustified expenditure of the estimated $250,000. The original motion for the two new departments was made by the then new Commissioner Rick Robbins, saying his investigation revealed that the clerk was overloaded and for other unstated reasons, and was quickly supported 4-3 by the Republican majority at that time. It took a lot of talking by the three Democrats over several meetings to get them to even agree to study the need for these jobs. No consultation was done beforehand with the affected parties, that being the clerk and the county administrator. In my mind, this reeked of a pre-done behind closed doors deal then, and it still reeks of that today in my mind, both in violation of the Closed Meeting Act. But miraculously, the $250,000 was found and added to the budget. Job postings and searches were begun, and in both job descriptions are the following criteria, amongst other things. Under experience, a minimum of 3 years in human resource responsibility for the HR position, and a minimum of 3 years in government accounting for finance. Based on the stories in the newspaper recently, it appears that neither qualification was met by the persons hired to these well-paying positions, and the county is now paying to train them in the roles they fill. With no disrespect to the two directors hired, they're the victims of this. This brings to mind an old saying, you don't buy a dog to teach it to bark. Because of the haste and lack of consultation and planning, the county found itself unable to find the qualified people needed, and in the process alienated employees within the current departments, to the point where they now are looking to spend taxpayer dollars for outside consultants for training. The motives for breaking these responsibilities away from the clerk, Michelle Crocker, now appear to have been politically motivated by members of her own Republican Party. Charges of misdeeds by her were filed by the sheriff, the treasurer, and Commissioner Robbins without going through the process established in-house to handle such matters. The state police, using taxpayer dollars, investigated the claims and found no evidence of misdeeds. The chair of the Republican Party also weighed in to cast aspersions on the clerk. This now, to me, looks more like an attempt to run the clerk out of office and gain control of the currently well-handled voting process, which the Republican Party actually has been very vocal about doing. This county has been well served by the clerk for many years, and the waste of taxpayer dollars on this poorly done reorganization should not continue. I urge the new Democrat majority to bite the bullet and return the organization to the way it was prior to this mess.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Mikowski.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Ashley's comments are almost identical to everything I have spoken at these meetings for the last 5 to 6 meetings. Two of the commissioners have apologized to the public and the clerk for this. We need all of you to do that. A great deal of intelligence can be invested in ignorance in the need for a little deeper. And that's where we started on May 11th, 2021. I can define a term for you as we move forward. It's good to keep conscious of what's going on. This was meant before 10 years ago in these meetings. It's a definition of fraud. Commonly defined, fraud is an act in which events are made to deceive the promises of goods, services, or financial benefits that do not exist or never intended to be provided or misrepresented. Fraud is not, in general, dependent upon the application of threat of physical force or violence. Before that, the victim is willful, albeit unwary participant. It is after the fact, when less is delivered than promised, that person realizes that he or she has been victimized. Fraud differs from such crimes as robbery, larceny, and theft. Robbery is a taking or attempted taking of anything of value from the care, custody, or control of a person or persons by force or threat of force or violence, and or putting the victim in fear. Robbery is both a property crime and a violent crime. Larceny and theft is unlawful taking, carrying, leading, or riding away property from the possession of another. This crime includes such actions as shoplifting, pocket picking, snatching, and the like. It too is a property crime, but the use of force is present. I echo Mr. Ashley's comments, and I don't care which party wants to give us the best possible government. But it cannot be a party that attacks people for many reasons. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Charles Knapp, Cleveland Township. Well, I have a number of comments to make. I can't be here next Monday for the second hearing, so I have to make it tonight. I've said it before, I'll say it again, I keep right on saying it. So, you voted to do the septic inspection, I don't think we should have pay the health department to show up and say it's okay, or say, no, it's not okay, do it again. They'll charge you $300 every time, just to make money. So I don't think they should be allowed to do that. If they want to show up and see your septic pump out receipt from Bay and Williams or whoever within a certain time, say 3 years, fair enough. As long as you've done it, they shouldn't be allowed to charge you for it. Number two, this is English language, housekeeping. We have a register of voters, that's how she's listed, her job's listed. The correct term is registrar. A registrar makes entry in the register, which is a record as well. That's correct English. It's common mistake is done nationwide, but I just couldn't resist slipping that in. Okay, now, as far as the vote machines go, I worked really done before. And as far as I could tell, everything worked fine, the scanners worked fine, they read the ballots correctly. The ballots were hand-marked, there wasn't any problem with that. So while I would prefer the punch card stylus system that I mentioned before, if we're not going to use that, as long as that machines we use aren't connected to the internet in any way, can't be tampered with in any way, I didn't really see anything wrong with it. It seemed to work fine. What did I want to say? Oh, maybe now, since I'm not a techie, maybe I just can't use the county website. Well, but when you go to the county website and look for the election results just for the county, I'd like to see it laid out in a chart form, not vertical columns, but a chart form for each township, who won what, and what township, what was on the ballot, resolutions or whatever, like this Timber Shores thing was in North Portland. And like I say, maybe it's just me, I'm not using it right, but charts are a lot easier to read in columns as far as it's like a computer. My next to last comment is about Indigenous Peoples Day. How many of you would like to be living out in the woods using Indigenous Peoples technology tonight? I don't think anybody wants to do that. So think about that. So, anyway. And the last man coming to Central Michigan came back and beat Buffalo.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Bill.
No easier, Elmwood Township, and more than ever, we demand honest elections in our Leelanau County by replacing the main voting machines with secure paper ballots. It's the only way to be secure here and all across our country. The handout I gave is just, when I was at the voting, for the second time I was asked, make sure you use the belt tip pens or Sharpies or whatever they are, Sharpie-like pens, and otherwise your vote might not count. Well, the envelope that holds them in says you can use blue or black ink. How come we're saying that to all the people? At least if we do, we should say it's wrong envelope. If you use blue ink or black ink, it might not work. So this is an example from Georgia. Georgia County using Dominion machines adds vote between November 3rd, I think this was the 2020 election, even though the article was written in September of 22. November 3rd count and the machine recount. Just going to read through a bit of it. These are excerpts. The media asks them, show us the fraud. Well, show us the election first. Think about it. It's real of, for, and by the people. They say there's no fraud that you can show. Show us the election. We say we have these paper ballots. I've never seen them. I mean, we've got them. We don't need the printouts because we've got the paper ballots. But when did we ever get to see it? A perfect time would have been when we looked at Antrim County and Leelanau County with the Supreme Court judges. It's handout 13 on the website, tcfamily.org, and it shows a very improbable situation of the turnouts in those votes. It wasn't expected at all the way it was because it hadn't been the pattern. It was outside the pattern. Well, show us the election first. It's difficult to prove a murder without being allowed to see the body, the crime scene, the weapon, etc. We still cannot get access to hand-marked paper ballots in any of the jurisdictions mentioned below. Anywhere around that I've seen, it's rule of, for, and by the people. I don't think. Hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars, maybe millions, are being spent to thwart the inspection of physical ballots. Why stop? You know, the people here that are so sure that there was no fraud, I think I can speak for them. They have no problem with looking at the ballots. And some people that might have a problem with it, like the 59% of Americans looking back and polled on the 2020 election, saying, yeah, we think that fraud determined the election, the 2020 election. And then another poll, it's right here, reports a majority of voters believe cheating likely affected the midterm elections, November 8th and 9th. It's a large poll. They came up with 57% say either somewhat likely or very likely. So some people are concerned about that, a lot, more than half. Others think there's no fraud. Everybody should agree. Well, then let's look at the ballots. But we don't. We hide them. Well, anyway, I don't have time to go slow through this, but if you look at the ballots on the bottom, not to speed it up, it's got the same, these are two different pictures, two different times. The batch numbers changed, but it was the same vote. In the first one, he voted for Donald Trump. In the second one, they added with a perfectly filled in circle, belt tip circle, the Libertarian Party, so it was an overvote. So they threw it out. If you look at the high resolution picture on the back, they added Joe Jorgensen, Libertarians. If that would have been added in, if the original would have been done in blue ink, say, then maybe that dark dot just printed on like Sharpie like that, perfectly in the circle. Where did that come from? That was printed by the printer. And so maybe that's why we're not supposed to be using the Sharpies. But anyway, and anybody looking at
Sorry, Bill, your time is up.
You know there's elections, so.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other, Mr. Lund?
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Chris Lund. I live on the Leelanau River. Been a full-time resident for over 20 years now. My grandparents have owned the same property that I have the luxury of living in now for over 70 years. They've also lived in the village of Leelanau for over 80 years, another 10 years prior to owning that property for 70 years. So I grew up as a baby swimming on the Leelanau River, boating everywhere and anywhere from the Leelanau River to Lake Leelanau, north and south. So I know these waters very well. Matter of fact, I have very tall relatives. My dad's 6'4", my uncles are 6'6", my cousins are 6'6", my oldest brother is 6'6". I didn't get those genes. But I specifically recall when I was a young boy that my dad and my cousins and my uncles couldn't go out in front of our cottage and stand up in the middle of the river. It was over their head. I can go out in front of my house in the same spot, and I'm only 5'8", and it doesn't get much over my waist. So you compound the fact that the river is filling in with the fact that there's a 1978 circuit court order mandating what levels are controlled for these bodies of water. It specifically says that the bodies of water shall be maintained at 589.21 feet above sea level as maintained at the Leelanau Dam in the village of Leelanau, County of Lake Leelanau, State of Michigan. We have brought this to the attention of Leelanau Dam Authority multiple times over multiple years, questioning why are they not maintaining the proper levels. You should have a number of letters in front of you that my wife and I have written, a cover letter summarizing our concerns to you directly for this evening's meeting, as well as some backup history on 2 detailed letters that we provided to the Leelanau Dam Authority over the last few meetings that they've had. We also have made this aware over multiple years with the Leelanau Dam Authority with deaf ears. And when we first originally started looking into this, we thought maybe the water levels were being artificially held low because they were rebuilding fish town. You know, the turbulence of that extra water flow, maybe they were artificially holding the levels low. Well, we found out that wasn't the case. We then, looked into other organizations that are concerned with invasive species in the area, and maybe thought, well, maybe they're keeping the waters low for the invasive species. Well, that didn't turn out to be the case. So we thought it would just be a very simple thing of learning about this court order and learning that it's in control of through the Leelanau Dam Authority, and that they're just blatantly disregarding the 1978 court order to the tune of about 4 to 6 inches low that the water levels have been kept since the spring of 2017 and currently. So from 1978 until about the fall of 2016, it was being followed. And there was a transition, and it's documented in all of the Leelanau Dam Authority notes that they changed their approach to, instead of keeping it at the 589.21 as maintained at the dam, trying to target within plus or minus 2 inches of the measurement as maintained and measured at the Narrows Bridge in Lake Leelanau, which, if you look at the charts, there are 3 sensors across these bodies of water. One Measuring the levels in Leland near the dam. There's one on the bridge in the Narrows in Lake Leelanau, and there's one at the south end of Lake Leelanau. If you look at any one given point in time, those sensors vary roughly 2 to 6 inches from one another, depending on flow and water levels. So that's all fun and interesting information, but the court order specifically says the levels are to be maintained at 589.21 as maintained at the Leland Dam. So I would encourage you to ensure that I see agenda item number 10, that there's going to be a membership proposal for the Leland Dam Authority. I'm hopeful that you as commissioners will, at a minimum, restructure that dam authority so they actually understand what they're supposed to be upholding.
Excuse me, your 5 minutes is up.
Okay.
Your 5 minutes for public comment.
I'll be back. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Thank you very much. Any commissioner comment? Well, Mr. Wiesner's comments reminded me that I wanted to applaud the clerk's office for a very successful and well-run election. And please convey that to the clerk.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
the only, I know I'm hard to hear. The only other comment that I'd have is the ballots do get used. If you've ever been to a time when there was a close race and a recount was called, they recount them by using the ballots. And there's never been, to my knowledge, enough error found in the hand counting to overturn an election. So usually it's one or two things where there might be writing outside or there's a challenge on some particular meaning, but the ballots do get counted. They're not hidden away. They do get counted. I just wanted to be sure that you were aware of that.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comment? Any proclamations, presentations, or communications? Okay, thank you. We have a very large consent agenda, and I'd like to read a statement on the consent agenda. The purpose of the consent agenda is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one motion without any discussion. Any commissioner may ask that any item on the consent agenda be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such request will be automatically respected and will not need a second. We have a consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Any discussion? No. All those in support of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved. Commissioner Lautner, did you vote yes on that?
Yes, I did.
Motion approved, 7-0.
Thank you.
We are now down to, we're going to move action item 8. We're waiting for Dawn Wagner to arrive. She was unable to tune in on the Polycom, so she is driving here. So we'll put that to the bottom of the agenda and deal with it at that time. So we'll go to equalization. Is Andrew here?
He couldn't zoom in.
Oh, my.
You couldn't what?
Zoom.
Zoom in and he can't.
Oh,
I think he did email all of you the revised form
he did.
a couple of days ago
Right.
with the revisions.
Should we take just a very quick break and make sure we find that email from Andrew and see if there are any questions, and then we
Well,
can...
it's fast. It's right here.
Okay.
So.
I looked at it, I didn't see
It
it.
simply resolves some of the elections.
Yeah, so the millages have passed.
Could we have a motion then?
Yeah.
You could simply approve the form as presented, the
Yeah.
L4402
Yeah,
form as
I would,
presented.
I would move to approve the apportionment report L44-02 as presented.
support.
Any discussion? All those in support of the motion say aye.
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 Motion approved, 7-0. We're now down to Administration and Finance Department training options.
Yes, last week, Mr. Prince and I presented a proposal from Raymond to provide consultation services for the finance department, and it was outlined what the services would be for a cost not to exceed $20,000. And you moved it forward.
Commissioner Lautner?
Okay. I would move to accept the Finance Department training options as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Commissioner O'Geyer?
I will support this because training has to happen. However, I really regret that we could not, as a board, have the people who have done the job for years do the training. It would have been a fraction of the cost. It's just yet another step in this calamitous tale. But the bottom line is our finance department needs training. So regrettably, since we have pretty much destroyed any other options, I will support it.
Any other comments? Patricia?
Well, I think anybody who was at the meetings where this was discussed, I wouldn't harbor any illusion that I was not 100% in favor of having the clerk do this, and still would have preferred to have the clerk's office go this way, because that's where this skill lies, and it would have been the least expensive option, as Commissioner Algar just said. The only other thing I wanted to point out is there was a lot of discussion about stipends, and because I was quite disturbed about the outcome, but also wanting to understand exactly, had this been a practice in the past, I did ask for that information. And there have been a lot of stipends for people who are doing work outside their normal assigned duties. And I think it's unfortunate that the decision was in part based on this, but as Commissioner Algar says, we need to move forward with training, and so I will be supporting this. But it's unfortunate that it did turn out the way it did.
Would ask Mr. Janik to speak to the issue of stipends, if you will, because at my request, he did explore that issue.
Yeah, and I talked quick, because since I've been here, the only stipend I was aware of is the one given to the clerk at my request in 2018. And so I understand there were stipends given to Mrs. Gala when she was the interim county administrator, and that was 20 years ago. And there was a stipend given when Georgia Robertson was the interim county administrator, and that was about 15 years ago. The only other one that I'm aware of is the one given to Laurel Evans, which all of you approved in the budget for extra work with the Parks and Recs. I'm not aware of any other stipends. There is training money in the law enforcement and dispatchers, but that's part of the labor contract. So those are not stipends, those are part of the pay, and that's part of the labor agreement. But that's the only stipends that I have been aware since I've been here, unless you know of some other ones.
No, those are the ones that I was referring to, too.
So the
Just
two were
examples.
for acting administrators who were doing that, and that was 15 and 20 years ago.
But just examples that that it has been done in the past, so it wasn't something that was out of the ordinary. And the training stipend, I would still consider that a training stipend. I'm glad that the other side of that has been eliminated in this new contract, where the employees aren't being deducted for the money that's being paid for training. But that's, a considerable amount of money that goes. So it was just, my only point was, it has been done in the past. And I found the same list that you did when I'd asked for it. So.
Well, I'm glad we're in agreement there.
We are.
Commissioner Reston?
Maybe you can help me answer this one, Chet. Do we provide training for any of our other employees in the county, outside training?
Yeah,
Do we have a budget for that?
yes, just top of my head, our inspectors, our building inspectors get training on a regular basis. We pay for that. We pay for their seminars, workshops. Yeah, we have a history of paying for, a lot of departments go to professional development. That's, unfortunately, you as a board have been very supportive of those plans. Since I've been here, every single request for professional development training has been passed, I think, 7-0. So some of them have been for all employees, some are from departments.
Is our equalization director a level 4 skilled employee due
I'm
to
pleased-
training that he got at the
I'm
county?
pleased to say yes, because that
Yes.
was a challenge, which we paid for that training. Yeah, this board and our departments have been very good about providing professional development opportunities for all employees. I think I could probably go around and every department has had some type of training. Some have been for the entire staff and some have been from each department.
So the point that I'm making is this really is not unusual.
The
To
question
train
is,
our
do we provide
employees.
training for our employees at the county expense? The answer is yes, on a pretty regular basis.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner comment? Do we have a motion on the floor?
We do.
Is there a motion to approve?
I believe there was, isn't there?
All the motion says there's no dollar amount, there's no vendor, and there is no account number. It just says to accept the finance department training options as
Let me provide,
presented.
that's from Raymond, and the cost not to exceed 20,000. And which account? Jared? Well, why don't you,
This has a couple of things on it.
why don't you read out loud so you have it on the record.
Account 101, 100, 101, 967, 000.
So whoever made the motion just could clarify, it's training from Raymond not to exceed 20,000 from the account that was just
Correct,
presented.
yep, that was what was presented, yes.
Second approve of that? Any further discussion? All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion approved 7-0. Thank you. We now are at the two items on membership proposals, and we'll start with the Leland Dam Authority. And Melinda, would you present that overview recommendation again?
Okay, yes, so we had a committee that met to discuss how we might form this committee and who might make it up. So there was Commissioner Wessel, myself,
Steve Christensen.
yes, Steve Christensen and Garth Greenan. Steve Christensen being our drain commissioner and Garth Greenan from the road commission. Chet was there. And we came up with the recommendation that it be 5 people made up of a road commissioner of their choice, a board of commissioner, 1 person, the drain commissioner, and 2 members at large, with priority given to a member with some engineering background, and the second being a Lake Leelanau riparian. And that was a recommendation, and that's what came to the Board of Commissioners last week. So, and that passed unanimously. So the representative for the road commission was okay with that. The drain commissioner was also okay with that recommendation.
Is that your motion?
Yeah, so I would move that Leelanau County Board of Commissioners form the Leland Dam Authority consisting of 5 members, a road commissioner, a Board of Commissioners member, the drain commissioner, and 2 at-large members with priority given to a member with an engineering background and a Lake Leelanau riparian.
I'll second.
I did tell Mr. Lund, as representing the Lake Leelanau Lake Association, that he could come to the table and take questions from us or make comments. So, Mr. Lund, would you like to come forward or to come to the table? Thank you.
I'm sorry, were there any questions or?
We have a motion on the floor, and the motion is one member from the road commission, one from the board of commissioners, one from the drain commissioner, and 2 members at large. Would riparians be given the priority? That's what the motion is on the table.
Yes.
Okay, and you're wanting my response to the motion? I'm sorry.
We'll give you the opportunity to comment on
Okay,
that.
thank you.
If you have any.
Thank you. I guess a couple comments. One, I want to be clear, this wouldn't be a new authority. There's been a Leelanau Dam Authority almost 20 years. And by their admission, they're really not a decisionary board. They're to report to this commission. So they're at direct control through this commission, and have been in place for almost 20 years, have not been doing their job since 2017, with no accountability on that board. So I would urge you that if, in fact, that's a group of individuals that has no authority to make decisions and are reporting to you, that if you do form this new version of this Leelanau Dam Authority, that the commission ensure that you have controls to make sure that you're actually doing your job. I would really encourage each of you individually to read the 1978 Circuit Court order, which very clearly specifies how that Leelanau Dam is to be maintained and the height of that dam. And I would just ask that you please maybe take a little more active oversight of guiding that authority as to properly following that order, and that there's accountability within that. I might even mention that in reality, with it being really a collection of people that don't have authority, that honestly, my honest opinion is that if this commission were just to direct Jerry to maintain the dam as he sees fit according to the court order, he would have that ability to do so without any other interaction with any other committees or individuals. He's been doing so for many, many years and doing a very fine job of following that court order up until and through the fall of 2016. So there's been a direct and distinct change and directed to that Leelanau Dam Authority to no longer follow the court order. So I would really encourage you, if you're not intimately familiar with what that court order says, please read it. And please make your own decision about how it's supposed to be interpreted in the courts. And put folks in place, if you're going to do that, that are actually going to uphold that court order and actually be accountable to that court order.
Thank you very much. Questions from Commissioner?
I can, Mr. Lund, right?
Yeah.
He is correct about the legal authority of the dam authority is simply for the dam. They do not control the water levels. And at least for me, I think most of us, this is the first time we're hearing it's not being followed.
Yeah, that's what.
No one from the dam authority or from the public has ever contacted me, or I don't think any of the commissioners, and we're told that it's not being followed. So you're probably the first one, at least, that's notified me of that. So we definitely will check into that.
Yeah, and we've been bringing it to the Leelanau Dam Authority's attention for years in trying to follow proper protocol, you know, and go through proper chain of command, which we felt was the right thing to go to the Dam Authority.
But your interpretation of the court order and the responsibility of the dam authority is accurate. I just want to confirm that you are correct. It's their job to maintain the dam and to implement the court order, which we were assuming was happening. And I don't know what happened, if it's accurate what you said about 2017, why it changed, because no one, I don't think anyone's ever notified us of that until you spoke here. So we can definitely check, I will check into that and see where the dam reading is. It's pretty easy to go down there. There is a gauge that tells you exactly where it is.
Yeah, and there's there's charts published on the Leelanau Lake Association's website. It's updated in real time. It has historical data from back when they first started using those sensors, which was 2016. And you can see very clearly in the history of those charts that the dam had been being maintained properly until up and through the fall of 2016. And then through the minutes of the Leelanau Dam Authority, there was a clear change in direction for the spring of 2017 to no longer follow the court order as stated. So I even have a picture of the charts as of this afternoon. It shows the last week of trending levels, and as measured, as maintained at the dam, it was 588.72, I believe, trending for the last week, which if you do the math, take 589.21 from that number, you get 5.4 inches. So on average, in the last week, the water levels have been 5.4 inches lower than the court-ordered levels. And this is very typical. It's been happening for the last 5 years.
Patricia, Gwen, and then Deb.
When you, Mr. Lund, and thank you so much for bringing this to our attention. When you raised this with the dam authority, what explanations were you given?
Depends on which version of an explanation. Originally, the explanation was, yes, we'll raise it some for you, with really no explanation of why it's done low. And this was a few years ago. So it might be incrementally raised maybe a half inch or an inch for a brief time, and then brought back down to those 5 to 6 inches lower than the court order. So we continuously be in touch with members of the dam authority directly and also through their meetings as well. And some of the reasons were, well, we need to agree to disagree, which, and then most recently at the most recent dam authority meeting, when they were directly posed, are you following the court order or not, they made a clear sign that yes, we were following the court order, but then minutes later, they said, well, maybe we need to raise it 2 to 3 inches because look, we haven't had much rain this year. So either you're following it or not following it. And it was interesting because after the meeting on October 11th, when we again brought the concern forward, miraculously the level shot up to the court order levels. And then it was allowed to spike over the court order level for a period of about a few hours. And then it was brought back down and dropped way below the court order as well. So there was a brief spike shortly after our October 11th visit with the dam authority. And then again with, I think it was October 25th when they had their second meeting, acknowledged that it had done well, that they would raise it, and they have not raised it. Because again, according to the data, it's 5.4 inches low, consistently trending.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me suggest this, because we're talking about two different issues. And Mr. Lund, if you want to give me your phone number, I'll pick a time where you're available. You and I and Jerry and maybe our board chairman will go there. There's a graph. It's easy. We can take photos to see whether we're in compliance or not and put this on the agenda for December. There was a debate, I remember, and we had to get a legal opinion about 2014. I could be off. A couple of the dam members, authority members, felt the reading should be an average at all the sites. One of them felt it should be at the Lake Leelanau Bridge. But we got a legal opinion for those of you that were on the board at that time. It clearly states it has to be the reading at the dam, not the average at different sites and not at the Lake Leelanau Bridge. It has to be the reading at the dam authority. And so we have that clarification because I know there was some confusion about that, but that was 2013, 2014.
Correct. And I would just reiterate, Commissioner Janik, that we've seen that in the dam authority's minutes as well as at their request. They've had multiple legal interpretations of that 1978 court order, which both have come back confirming what I'm trying to present to you this evening, which is not being followed since 2017.
Okay. Gwen, you had a question?
Well, what Chet is suggesting, it sounds like what needs to happen. I was just curious when you were discussing, do you have a problem over time with silting in the river? I mean, does it need to be dredged periodically?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'm just going back to, it was over the heads of
Yeah,
very tall people,
yeah.
and now it's to their waist, and that's not 5 inches.
I can address that too. And I'm
Does
going
it
through
still,
my memory.
does it
Yeah,
still
does it need to
count?
be dredged? Yes. The question, who's going to pay for it and how will it be financed?
And,
at
and
that
that, and that's not a dam issue.
No, it
That's
was
the
discussed at the board
residents.
level. It was discussed at the board at one point, and I'm thinking 2013, 2014, and there was talk about doing a special assessment, but it never got beyond the dialogue stage.
Yeah, the lake owners would have to pay for that.
Well, I have a few things to that. Number one, certainly, the Leland River has filled in over the years, as well as the narrows through Lake Leelanau. And those are addressed in the 1978 court case as well. The issues of those being bottlenecks, potentially, of getting water out of the South Lake through the Lake Leelanau Narrows, through the North Lake, and through the Leland River over the dam to be able to more easily or more efficiently control the overall lake level from very south spot of the lake to the very north at the dam. So that was addressed in the court case, but it wasn't part of the court order for it to be continued to be dredged, but it was addressed as a potential issue. And we have talked with the Leland Dam Authority about these over the years, about possibly having hydrological studies, getting permits for dredging both the Leland River as well as the Leland Lake Leelanau Narrows. But they admittedly said that's not within their authority, so they have to just sort of say thanks but no thanks. And I respect that. At least they're understanding what they can and can't do within the rules, right? So I have been made aware of other individuals, in the county that are willing to put money into dredging of these sorts of things. So I think dredging could help in a number of ways. And again, I'm not an engineer, but I've looked at this quite a bit. That number one.
Could I suggest, our business today is just to approve the dam authority, and then we will add this to the December agenda, and try to learn and but our purpose, be assured, our purpose in revisiting that dam authority was to make sure it did the job it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
So we have a motion on the table. Are there any other commissioner comments?
I had a question, if I
Yes.
may ask. I was wondering if the measuring that you're doing is the same measurement that we're doing. Are you using the same tools in the same location?
Yeah, great question. There's the main published tool are the 3 sensors that's published on the Lake Leelanau Lake Association, which bought the sensors on behalf for the Dam Authority to use. So those are the sensors that the Dam Authority uses, which were purchased by the Lake Leelanau Lake Association. As well as there are elevation markers that mark the 580, the 589, the 588. If you were to go under the bridge in the village of Leland and stand on the Marks docks and look underneath the bridge across the river, you'll see a bunch of tick marks and a bunch of measurements. Those are elevations above sea level. And you'll notice that where it would be 589.21 has historical stain marks right at that elevation. And if you also look at where the level has been for the last 5 years, it's usually 4 to 6 inches lower than that historical staining mark. So we have the sensors that the Leelanau Lake Association has installed. We have physical elevation markers on the bridge in the village of Leland. We have a historical staining of where it had been maintained, and it's 4 to 6 inches consistently lower than that. And there are also old pilings from old docks that are underneath that Leland Bridge. There used to be an old wooden dock underneath the bridge. And those pilings, when they're exposed to air, they decompose. So you can now see with the levels being maintained at the 4 to 6 inches too low, you can now see 4 to 6 inches of those old dock pilings.
Let's, I think we're into our December meeting now.
Right, and the point that I wanted to make here is you're giving me, or you're telling me, you're taking measurements at the Leland Dam, at the Narrows on the bridge, and you're taking measurements in the South Lake. And what I don't think you understand is, as Mr. Janik pointed out, We have a measurement stick, for lack of a better word, at the dam where we measure, and that, whatever that level is there, is what we, as a board, are required to do under the law.
Yeah, and that's the fourth one I was gonna mention as well. Right at the Falling Water Lodge on the side of their embankment.
Yep. So we do need to get this resolved, and so I would suggest that you do meet with our administrator, walk the walk, and then have a
We'll
conversation.
take photos.
Yep, and it can come back to this
we'll
board.
be-
Thank you for your
You're welcome to join
time.
me. You're welcome to join me.
It'll be low now, because today's the day that they drop it for the winter. They drop it for a foot in the winter, so today's the day it dropped.
Oh,
Well, thank
They
you
late
for
and a
coming
dollar
tonight,
short.
and we'll invite you back for December meeting, and we'll add this to the agenda for December.
And the two detail letters show all of that historical.
We have them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. We have a motion on the, on the table. Any further discussion by commissioners? All those in support of the motion say
Aye.
Opposed, same. We have approved new composition for the dam authority, and it sounds like they have a charge. Thank you.
We have 86 District Court here.
Yes, we have, now we can,
You want to do the DPW? It's the same topic, you know.
yeah, we'll do this will be quick, the DPW composition, and then we'll move it to court.
Okay. Shall I?
Yeah.
Okay. I would move that the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners, that Leelanau County Board of Public Works consists of the 7 Leelanau County Board of Commissioners, the Drain Commissioner, and the County Treasurer.
Support.
Any discussion?
I'm just going to say briefly that while that seems cumbersome, it actually is going to save a lot of time. So what the Board of Commissioners will do is, or so what the Board of Public Works will do is just meet when the Board of Commissioners is already meeting. We'll have a set schedule, we'll have set time, and we actually will meet. So.
All those in support of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion approved, 7-0. Now,
Just based on that, I will draft up the proper procedures to go through, because there's some legal requirements we have to change, so I'll put that on the December agenda also. Because it's just like when we restructure the road commission, there's a legal process you have to go through, and I think the terms may have to be staggered, so we'll try to get it all ready for you by the December agenda.
Don Wagner, we apologize for having technology problems tonight, but thanks for driving out here. You want to introduce this, Jeff?
Yeah, I think most of you know Dawn Wagner. She is the court administrator. She has been with us quite a few times over the years in different capacities. She was named the court administrator, I believe, a year ago. Oh, Jan, okay, almost a year ago. She was a deputy for several years, and before that, she's been employed of Grand Traverse County for 20, I was going to say 27, I was close, 28 years, so. And this is part of a tri-county agreement. As you know, we're in agreement. We're in a partnership with Antrim, Grand Traverse, and Leelanau County. Once a year, we get together and look at the agreement with Commissioner Wessel. Joined us here last month, and we were supposed to have this on the agenda for last week, but there were some issues because we moved the date and everything. And so the judges were going to be here, but because we moved the dates, they're not here. So, but they are very interested in coming back, and I believe Laura scheduled them a time in 2023 to give an update, because that was supposed to be on the agenda last week also. So Dawn and the judges were all set to go.
Yeah, we're happy to come back this year if you want us to come back for this year. But I understand you guys were kind of presentations out, so.
Thank you for hopping in the car at the last minute and driving over here. That's true dedication.
Did anybody have any questions regarding the intercounty agreement?
I do believe we got that packet at our executive, and I was
Yes.
just trying to find that, because I did have some questions on that in regards to, just tell us what you're adding.
Sure. Well, there's some things that are removed.
Would you like a copy of it? Or?
Actually, you got it, right?
Well, I can find it. I don't have it in front of me, but I can. Okay.
The major change was in a section that talked about liability. Both the county, all three county administrators wanted some language added in regards to individual county liability. And so the language that is added makes it so that if one county is being sued or unhooked, then the other two counties are not.
That's fine.
The other piece of it that is changed was the former court administrator's position, which was originally at a Leelanau, not originally, it became a Leelanau position. That language was changed so that it reverted back to a Grand Traverse position.
So that's your position?
That's my position.
Yeah. So now that's back over in Grand Traverse County,
Yes, yeah.
but we're still paying the same percentage.
The percentage changes every year depending upon caseload percentage. So I think the percentage for 2022, if I remember correctly, was 10.5%.
A little lower than I thought. And it seems to me that you were putting on some added probation workers.
So there was some legislation changes that occurred last year in regards to probation and things that the judges could put on probation terms that could be reduced. And so in an attempt to be fiscally responsible, our court actually made some budget cuts and cut some positions. We are finding, what we did was we took all of the probation positions, instead of having a Leelanau probation officer, Manson probation officer, and Grand Traverse probation officers, we created one probation department, and our probation officers service Leelanau, Grand Traverse, and Grand Traverse. They can be assigned to cases no matter what county they're in.
And historically, you had male and female for each county? Did you have male and female probation officers for both counties?
No, we didn't, there was never a specific male or female position. We had, Leelanau historically has always had one position. Antrim has had one position and a complaint officer. When we did our budget cuts, we removed the complaint officer position from Antrim. And we removed, I believe it was we eliminated 6 probation positions, if I remember correctly. I have to put that in.
So these probation officers are different than the probation officers that serve in community corrections?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Community corrections is a separate division.
Okay, because I know their positions in that department were also cut.
They have a position cut that Ms. Shively just got back, so we were in the process of hiring for that position.
Okay.
What we found was in anticipation of caseload numbers going down, there were some things that we didn't think about. The cases that we have on probation are more serious and more time consuming, so our probation officers, we cut too deeply. And so we are hoping to come back and request for another position.
Which court are these new probation officers serving? Is it circuit court? Or?
You mean the community correction position?
No, the ones that you're hiring.
We're not hiring any probation officers.
I thought I read that you were. My mistake. So I'm glad you clarified that.
We had requested, when we submitted the budget for 2023, we requested a probation position back. We requested a full-time compliance position and point to make one of our sobriety court, treatment court probation officers full-time. And we received the point two and a compliance position, but not a probation position.
Okay.
We're not fighting for that one. We'll come back at some point.
Other questions for Dawn?
I asked all those questions because I wanted to make sure that your travel up here was worth it.
I love Leelanau County. Anyway, so.
Even in the snow. Huh?
In the dark?
Okay, do we have a motion?
We do on page 2. Would you like me to make it, or did somebody else have their heart
Go
set on
right
making
ahead.
it?
Go ahead.
All right.
I would move that the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners approve the revised intercounty district court operating agreement between the counties of Antrim, Grand Traverse, and Leelanau as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion approved. Thank you, Don.
Dawn, thanks for coming.
And watch for deer.
Yes.
And nice deer.
I did read in the paper this week that Michiganders saying watch for deer is like saying I love you in Florida.
Yeah, I care about you. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
I read that too.
Okay, we now are at our letter of understanding for Teamsters Local
Yeah,
214.
I think I just want to clarify some issues that surfaced, and I sent you all an email, I believe, last Thursday, but clarify, this is a letter agreement between the Teamsters and the county for several reasons. One is the two new positions in senior services are placed in the union, which by law they have to be. There was a change in their personnel when we were going through this process, and it kind of slipped through the cracks, and we're both in agreement that they have to be placed in the union. We're talking about these positions, not the people in the positions. There was concern that these two positions are equal, and they are not equal, and based on what the Senior Services Director presented in July of 21, and all of you received an email from me with those documents, when she presented the two positions, the care corner position and the aging well resource corner positions, they are at different pay scales, and that was a recommendation, and that was approved, and that's what's in your budget. So this simply puts them at the same pay level as they are getting. The other plus for them is actually the aging well coordinator, because of the pay scale, will actually get a higher pay increase than she would have if she was non-union. But so I want to clarify that these are just about the two positions being a union. The other good things about this, it clarifies the fact that we as an employer have the right to place people as we wish on the pay scale. We simply have to notify the union about that. The prior union rep was very supportive of that. We've had 10 years of history doing that. There's a new rep, and I understand where he's coming from because he's new and he's not used to this area. He would like to have that clarified, and this does that. And this also was written by our legal counsel and endorsed by our legal counsel. Matt Norforth drafted this after talking with the union. So that clarifies that issue, which I think is a win-win for us. And the only other issue is, and we agreed to it, that if you look at our pay scale, the Teamsters are the lowest paid group. The lowest pay scale is grade 1. Currently, there are 5 grades. Prior to the old scale, we actually had 8 grades. And we actually agreed that it was unfair. The pay scales, I think the beginning pay scale grade 1, prior to this contract was it $13 some, Michelle, or was it 12, high 12s at one time?
13, well, 12, 13.
Yeah, 12 or $13. In this economy, we're not getting it. So we actually, and I think the union was very pleased with this last year, we actually came up saying, let's get rid of the first two, combine them. So we went from 8 pay scales to 5 pay scales. We got rid of the original starting step, and Commissioner Lauter was part of that process. So that clarifies that issue. We have 2 employees in the county that are our 2 lowest employees. They both started at grade 1, the starting scale. You can simply ask to give them 1 year credit, which we have done for other employees. So those 2 employees would be moved up 1 step. The other issue is it clarifies that we as employer have the right to place people as we choose on the pay scale. Simply have to notify the union, and it does legally put those 2 positions in the union as is required because we are a union shop, and in Michigan law, they have to be part of the union.
Tricia?
Well, thank you for the explanations and clarifications. I would like to make a motion that we postpone approval of the letter of understanding until our December meeting, and I'll explain why when I speak to that.
I would support that.
And the reason I realize that this has been in the works for some time, so this postponing it 1 month is probably not going to cause any heartburn anywhere. And I think it's important. I understand wanting to finish it up in deference to our new administrator starting this month. end of this month. But I think after our meeting where we talked about the training and everything, we also talked about the fact that the senior services director had been requesting for some time a pay increase. And I was looking, just really, as I said earlier, wanting to have a better understanding of exactly where our employees are, historically, where they've been, what have they been paid, who's received, increases, where people have started. And so I asked, and I apologize to the clerk again because it was at a time during her elections, but I asked for a lot of information, just trying to look at patterns to see what justification there may or may not be behind some of the actions and some of the recent increases that we've done with certain other positions. And as everybody knows, I keep pushing for a wage and classification study to really do this the right way, but I also realize that that's not going to happen, at least not this year. Maybe the board next year might consider that. But the information I asked for, and I just want you to know what I did ask for. I asked for a list of all employees with the title, the date of hire, in their current position, if it was other than their starting, their current pay, and to indicate whether the employees were hired at or above a starting rate of pay, including employees that transferred from one department to another department. I also asked for the past 15 years to list all employees and their length of service, who had transferred from one department to another, who had been terminated, who had been rehired, who had retired. And the reason I asked for that is there was an awful lot of conversation during the last few months about, certain departments. People left those departments to go to other departments, and I wanted to see, is that true? Does the data really bear that out? I also asked for the list of unions so I could look at the different contracts and the wages that were paid. And I asked for names and positions for all of this. And I asked for the contract through December 31st, 2021, and starting wage on January 1st, 2022, and the salary grids. I asked for a list of any employees receiving promotion by the BOC board action, approving wage salaries to correspond with promotion and promotion dates. And I asked for a list of employees current nor past receiving stipends, as I've already covered, so I won't touch that again. And I asked for a current department head listing of the number of employees they supervised, the amount of the budget that they were responsible for, whether their budget included grants, fees, millages, or other revenues beyond county funds, and how much of their total budget that this represented, and then the length of time in that position, their starting wage, current wage, and education required to hold that position. And so when I looked at all this data, and it was a lot, it's a ton. But one thing really started to fall out, and that's why I objected to the Teamster contract last time, is it's very clear that by starting employees at certain positions on the wage scale, that this year, it has really created some inequities, particularly for 8 employees, in addition to the 2 that will be transferred into the union, the Teamsters Union. So not only was it just the senior services, who's about $13,000 below any other director, but has as many people to supervise, has to get her own budget, and all of these things. It was clear that there were some other issues that are being provided. Now, I'm not against the idea of selecting a starting step, and that would be commensurate with a candidate's qualifications if it fit within the job. But I think that instead of passing this today, let's look at, there has to be a solution for the other 8. Let's be fair about this. I think it's great that the steps were compressed, and so that you've got a new starting step that benefits most people, but not everybody. So, we, at last week's meeting, our chairman came up with the idea of a group of us being together to look at the wages and to look at these classifications and to look at things and to try to come up with some suggested solutions, which I was happy to be on that committee. As I said at the time, this is really beyond our scope and training, but let's take a look at it and see what we can come up with. And I'm happy that our new administrator, Deb Allen, is going to be a part of it, and our current administrator who brings historical knowledge, as well as our new director of HR, and Melinda Lautner as the other county commissioner who will be on it. But I think before we pass this, that sets in stone, we need two things. Let's look at those 8 employees, as well as the 2 being added to the union, and see if isn't there something we can do from an equity standpoint to really to overcome what is happening in terms of people with similar jobs starting at different steps and now being paid a great deal of difference and not being able to move up as quickly to the last steps. So I think that's really important, and I also think we need a policy, and I think that falls to the new administrator to craft it, and that is stating that, yes, we have this ability, if it's in your budget, to hire at a different step if it meets the qualifications of the job and it is commensurate with that individual who's about to be hired into it. But that all directors should be aware of this and should be able to utilize that. So for all of those reasons, I am encouraging my colleagues to just postpone this 1 month and let us take a look to see what we can do, because once we pass this, it puts that policy that created the inequities in cement, at least until the next union negotiation period. So if we just postpone it 1 month to take a look to see what we can do, and then let's address it in December. And again, I appreciate kind of the urgency of moving it forward, because I think our current administrator is trying to give a helping hand to our new administrator coming in, but I think this is an important thing, and it's well worth a 1 month delay.
Before I call on Commissioner Rushton.
Well, let me just clarify. Everything Commissioner Soto said can occur by passing this. They're 2 separate issues. This is a legal requirement. We have a labor contract that goes through 2024 with the union. In the state of Michigan, these positions have to be union. We've been dealing with this since May with the union. On a very positive note, this simply puts the 2 positions in the union and clarifies other things. There's nothing in this that prevents doing from everything you're suggesting. But these positions have to be union. I'm not saying it will go through, but we were told there will be an unfair labor practice if this issue has not been resolved. This simply puts the 2 positions in the union. If you want to look at positions at different steps, that can still occur. So we're talking about 2 separate steps. Nothing that you talk about is in conflict with this. This simply clarifies from these 2 positions in the union and asserts the right that we have the right to put people where we place on the scale. Our attorney highly endorses this. It complies with the law. Does not prevent us from going back to union and looking at different positions and recommending with the union. It has to be a joint issue, putting people at different steps or different classifications. I thought we were extremely generous with the union when we signed the 3-year contract by eliminating the steps and putting the steps up, and the union was very grateful for that. But we're meeting tomorrow, I believe, at 11
Yes, we are.
If you pass this does not change anything. It simply puts us in compliance with state law and the labor contract. And if we wish to look at putting people in different classifications, it's a different process for union versus non-union, because we cannot negotiate with individuals. The union has to be, we have to go through the union to do that. That is an unfair labor if we simply reach out to the individual union members. So we have to be very careful about that. I've been part of union before, much stronger union, the MEA, and we have to be very careful that we work with the union reps on this. We cannot work with individuals on this. But nothing that in this agreement prevents us from doing exactly what you're talking about. But this simply puts us in compliance with state law and clarifies the fact that we as an employer have the right to place people in the union. And that always has been at the discretion of the administrator and the department head. I think it's a slippery slope where we get the board involved on where we're going to place new employees. That's not the role of the board.
Commissioner Rushton.
Yes, thank you. we are the employer. We, through our leadership in our departments, create the job descriptions. We put the pay rate out there. People apply for these jobs and they accept the jobs. What we have now is the engineer who comes and fills out the application to be a dishwasher, and now the dishwasher wants to be paid engineer wage. Now, do we need to look at what we offer here at the county? We have step growth. This last summer, we just gave all the employees an extra $500 bonus and a 3% raise over and above their annual increase, which I believe is a little over 3% this year.
3.25.
Thank you. Our employees pay $0 for their health care. Name somebody else who does that for their employees. Nobody that I know of. It concerns me that we get complaints about jobs that were accepted when they came to us with the education that they had and they applied for a job that was described to them. Now, do I believe that everybody needs to be looked at fairly? Of course they do. But everybody is not going to get paid the same amount of dollars. The job description describes the amount of money they are going to be paid when they accept the position.
I may be confused, but I think the issue we're talking about is just a matter of approving something that we have to approve. Not discounting all of the things that Patricia, you brought to the table, but that's not for this issue. But I don't think we have a choice on this issue. We have to approve these as union positions, and we're late in doing that in November. So I would, I mean, my thought was, we ought to look at the things that you're talking about, Patricia, but we ought to move on this now, because this is a legal requirement that we have.
Do we have a motion for that?
We have a different motion on the
Yeah,
table.
we do. If I may,
Yes.
in response to some of the comments that are being made, the problem that we have is because of the practice of promoting people to upper echelon positions that have no more qualifications, nor does the job require it. The position itself doesn't require that. And yet, other positions that were hired in within the same, during 2021, take the people out of it, but with the same type of job are much lower. So when you set something higher, and you have other people hired in before at a lower rate, it's not the dishwasher and the engineer, it's the same level of job. So what this agreement of understanding does is it says, yeah, we can continue doing that. I said, I don't have any problem with that if we're in agreement that we are going to rectify at least the 8 people that I saw on the data that are very, very much affected. And we're not talking about that. Now, I don't know what the process is once we agree to the Teamsters Union understanding for, just a moment, please, to rectify that. But I don't know if it's a simple kind of thing we can do. I don't know if there are any other suggestions out there, that we could be considering now.
I can find, it is a fairly simple process because we have a good relationship with the union. At least since I've been here, we've had no grievances, we have no arbitrations, we've had no lawsuits.
okay.
So we're in good relationship with the union. There has to be a different process. I don't know who the 8 people you're talking about. There's a different process whether they're in the union or outside of the union.
They're in the union.
We have to be very careful.
They're in the union. It's
Okay.
all Teamster people.
Okay, but this simply clarifies the legal process. It does not prevent us from talking about any of those position. And I think all of you agree, we as employer want to have the right to place people on the scale. How you wish to do that, if you want to change the process, that's an internal discussion between the board and the administrative department heads, but that's separate from the labor contract. We do have a legal labor contract in 2024, and our past practice has been, and numerous state of Michigan court cases verify that the employer has the right to place people on the scale. We are simply clarifying that. The former union rep was actually grateful and thanking us for being pro-employees. He wished other counties were as proactive as we were placing people on the scale. And a lot of it is market-driven. The number of employees we'd get for a job 5 years ago was different than last summer. I won't go into details, but I know 4 jobs where we posted in the last 2 years, we got originally 0 applicants for. So that is part of the challenge where we place them based on the market. And can we attract employees? So everything that you talk about can occur through a process, but this is completely separate. This clarifies a union labor contract and guarantees us the right that we as management have the right to place people on the pay scale, which I think we definitely want that.
Commissioner Lautner?
I guess I have a question of clarification in what Commissioner Sotos Little was getting at. So I think if I understand what you're doing, you're stating here publicly that you think there are 8 union positions that need to be changed. So I guess I'm sitting here as a commissioner thinking deeply concerned that why would we be negotiating publicly on this? This is union negotiation discussion. And we should not be sitting here saying anything publicly like that.
I can tell you from a legal perspective, we should not be talking about individual positions as a group. It has to go through the labor negotiation process. We have a negotiating team, they have a negotiation team. We have to follow that process.
And there's a process.
And hence my comment with this postpone it a month. I'm not giving names, I'm not suggesting anything, I'm honoring that. I was just suggesting waiting.
As chair.
Let's call the question.
As chair, I would express a concern that I thought we had, if not policy, at least precedent, that all commissioners had access to the same amount of information. And you're citing some things, Patricia, and I know you've done your homework, but if I ask the clerk's office for something, I think she sends it to everybody. And I think we're at a disadvantage here. I also think we're talking about something that we shouldn't be talking about now. We have, the agenda item is approval or rejection of the letter of understanding, Teamsters Local 214.
Mr. Chairman, I very definitely disagree with you, but I've just called the question.
And the question is to postpone.
Right.
May we restate the question? Okay.
Motion by Sotos Little that the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners postpone the letter of understanding until the December meeting. Second by Algier.
All those in support of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm opposed.
Okay, so the motion fails, 2-5. Belinda?
I move to recommend accepting the letter of understanding from the Teamsters Local 214.
Support.
I assume you move to move, not to recommend, correct?
I mean to move. Yes, I do. To move to accept the letter of understanding.
Any discussion?
Who seconded that? Commissioner Rushton? Thank you.
All those in support of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the motion approved 5-2, and I trust that the group will meet tomorrow to begin discussion of some of the issues that Commissioner Sotos Little has brought up.
Yeah.
And some recommendations, and I think you got what you need on this.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I did bring in the material that I had, and I indicated to our administrator a couple days ago that I thought everybody should have a copy of it.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we'll be glad to send out after tomorrow's meeting to everybody.
We now have probate court register salary.
Yeah, I did get a legal opinion late this afternoon that I shared with the judge that I'll share with all of you, and we'll put this on December. agenda. But basically, it is the same legal status as the chief deputies for the clerk, the treasurer, the register of deeds, and therefore, there was a change in personnel after the term of office for the judge began. So the person currently in that position is entitled to same pay as a person that left that position. And so, once again, we have to change that, and there will be, I'll recommend no steps. There'll be one position for that, or one salary for that position, no matter how much experience that person has, and that's by state law. So we'll draft the documents, because when we do this, we want to make sure that, and she is entitled to retroactive pay, that amount does not become of her 2022 salary, so it doesn't go forward. So just like with undersheriff, we had to have an agreement. We'll draft all those documents. I'll get the legal opinion to you probably tomorrow, but it'll be in the December agenda. I met with the judge this afternoon. We're in agreement on how to proceed. So we're, working on the numbers, how much the back pay is, and then the letter that she will hopefully sign, agreeing that this is not part of her 2022 base pay. It will not go forward.
This is the last one?
I certainly hope so. Yes, I don't know of any other elected officials. Obviously, there was concerns originally because the register cannot have authority as a judge, but there are different court laws about this position than the elected officials, and that's all in the legal opinion. And that's why it took so long to clarify this issue.
Next item on the agenda is labor negotiations.
Just a quick update. We're meeting Thursday morning, and I'm optimistic that hopefully in December we can come to you with a proposed labor agreement. I'm optimistic. We'll see how that goes. But once again, we're very fortunate that we are in good dialogue with our union reps, and it's been positive dialogue. As our commissioners, Wessel and Lauter, know from being part of those sessions, and I'm optimistic we'll be able to get a resolved contract. Most of the issues, without going into details, have been resolved. So I think we're down to a few issues that hopefully we can resolve in the near future and have a contract approved by the end of the year.
I think there's a session on Thursday.
Thursday, yes.
Can you do that one,
Yes,
Melinda?
I'll be there.
Okay.
So we'll keep you updated on that.
Any questions for Chet? We're now at review of financials.
I did make it through this week, and I didn't have any particular concerns about any of the bills. Personally, I did wonder what one thing was. It was a oddly named bracket of some sort. Like it was.
that for like building safety or something.
Yeah. Something, yeah. And I see we've done all the, looks like all the, there's some D&W bills. It looks like they're doing all the standard just testing of the systems. He's going through, looks like a checklist.
Speaking of that, the two heat pumps that finally did come, they were ordered in July, were installed, and I believe they're working. One is in by Senior Services,
Okay.
and I think the second was upstairs, but they finally came. So we ordered them in beginning of July, and they arrived 2 weeks ago maybe. And were installed, I think they completed the job yesterday.
Good.
Patricia?
I just want to thank Jared because it was very helpful getting that in with advance notice, so thank you so very much.
And Jared assured us he'll get those out at least by the weekend prior to the board meeting, so he'll have at least several days.
And it was a short week to do that.
I know.
Jen mentioned today an amendment. Did we get that? Is that in there?
I believe she passed.
Is it? Oh, okay. Okay. I didn't see that. I'm sorry.
So if I can ask Chet, do we have any more of those heat pumps on order?
I believe we have one or two still.
Still on order? Okay.
I can clarify that, but I'm pretty sure that we do.
Any other questions for Jared on financials?
I didn't have any other.
Thank you. Thank you. We now have committee reports, recommendations, and resolutions. We now have special reports by staff, commissioners, and affiliated agencies.
Yeah, the special report is we will have a Christmas party once again. We haven't had one since 2019. I think we have a date, but we're going to confirm that, and all of you will be welcome to come to it. It's a potluck, and it's very festive, and we'll get an email to all of you. I'm 90% sure I have a date, but I don't want to announce it because I don't give you the wrong date. And in the past, the commissioners have been generous in helping pay for the meat for the potluck, so, but we'll get back to you and contribute, if you wish to contribute on the details on that shortly. But it's going to be that time of year before we know it. But we have not had a Christmas party since 2019.
I think we should have venison.
Well, for those of you who went hunting this morning, maybe you could bring some in.
Donation.
She just volunteered her deer meat.
Was that a motion
That's a
for you to bring
motion that we have.
venison?
We could make it a motion.
Okay.
Fresh venison.
Thank you. We now have our second public comment. If anybody would like to make public comment, yes.
Really more of a question than a comment, but especially in light of tonight's conversations about the dam board, what will be the?
I'm sorry, for the record, you have to identify yourself.
Oh, that's right, so. What will be the process for advertising for, who will determine those qualifications for those at large? Who will have the authority to choose them? And if I missed that, I apologize, but I didn't hear that process.
This is public comment. I can talk to you afterwards. We don't respond, but I can talk to you afterwards.
Thank you.
The answer is the 2023 commissioners.
Yes, Keith. For you.
I guess the one question's been answered, the number's $20,000. At your executive meeting last week, I commented, one that it made more sense to do the training in-house rather than expensive going out. I agree with Commissioner Algar that the train has left the station, you do have to get training done, so that's a moot point perhaps. But in your commissioner comments, I appreciate if somebody would comment on the October 27th issue of the Enterprise mentioned that your commissioners agreed that the county didn't really need the HR director job. And in my comments before this meeting, both jobs require an experience, 3 years of experience. And I'm wondering, has that been waived? Is that a process that has to be followed? Can it be waived? I don't know about the financial director job, but the fact you're going to spend $20,000 means it doesn't have 3 years of government experience, in my mind. And certainly with the HR director, we know the training that she is engaged in at her own expense and some at the county expense. She apparently doesn't have that 3 years of experience. So I would appreciate somebody commenting on, one, is the October 27th issue correct that you agree that you don't need that HR job? And of the 3 years of experience, do they or don't they have it? And has it been waived? Is that a process that is normal? And let the public know, the bottom line in my mind is that if you don't need that job, you owe it to the taxpayers to roll it back. Let that person go back to whatever job they had and handle the HR as it has been handled.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Yes, Mr. Mikowski.
Like Mr. Ashley, we need lots of sunshine. And it hasn't been coming since May 11th, 2021. What I find fascinating that in our omissions and omnipotence, we foolishly struggle to find a Hail Mary attempt to justify reckless and wasteful spending. $200,000 that could have been done much more economically. The taxpayers are being taken for a ride. We're stealing money from taxpayers to waste it. What a clever system we have. It's fascinating. Another point, I'm happy to learn that the dam authority now, which did a lot of damage, not the dam authority, sewer, or the Board of Public Works, which was a memo, they were the county commissioners in 1991, beginning with 1988. They secretly got together and did a hydro study on our 100-acre Prudmont Pond nature area to steal it for a sewer plant, to commercialize it, even though it was declared by a DEQ to be a park. The commissioners and the Board of Public Works stuck us with a $2.9 million, $1.9 million bond at 9 3/8% interest on the sewer project. So I'm happy to see some sense made out of this process. As Chairman Deering did in 1991, when I questioned why we were getting nailed with a 93% interest, he said he didn't care if the bond sale was $50 million, he would still approve it.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Thank you all for coming tonight and for your comment. Any commissioner comments? I missed my target. I said 5 to 8. Deb, sorry, Deb.
Looks like my husband had to take the food out of the oven at 8:30.
You're talking Central Time.
We are now down at the approval of financials. Do I have a motion? Commissioner Lautner?
I move to approve amendment number 22-010.
Support.
All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion approved, 7-0.
I would move to approve claims and accounts, $226,850.07.
Support.
All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same.
I would move to approve post audit, $13,422,195.19.
Support.
All those in support of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion approved, 7-0. Thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn.
Yes, we are adjourned.